Welcome to the Dynamic Leaders Podcast, the show that talks culture and leadership in sports with some of the most compelling coaches, athletes, and business people in the world. I am your host, Colin, and thank you for joining us today. Be sure to check out the show notes for any additional information you want to know about this episode, and you can also find my contact information if you'd like to say hi. If you aren't driving or in the middle of a run, please consider taking a minute and leaving us a review of the show on Apple Podcasts. This is the best way to help other folks find the show. And if you're feeling extra generous, hit share on this episode and post it to your social media handles. Thank you, as always, for all of the support. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to check out my Amazon best-selling book, Culture of Excellence, What We Can Learn from the Yankees About Leadership. This book is a fun and informative read that is filled with impactful stories that will become value adds to your life. I'm a little biased, but seriously, it's a transformative book. You can find that, training notebooks, swag, and information on the Leadership Academy workshop and trainings all in the show notes, or go to talent409.com. All right, I have Jen Brooks here with me on the podcast today. And Jen, I want to dive right into my first question here for you. When we talk about development in sports at the high school level, you're a high school athletic director. What does that mean to you when we talk about development? Because I think that, a lot of times when people see athletic directors or they hear about athletic directors, they just think, oh, they're administrators, they're paper pushers, and things like that. But as far as like development goes, I know that's something for a lot of reasons that's really near and dear to your heart, but I'd love to know what that word means to you to start the conversation.
So that's a hard one right off the top, but it has so many levels to it, so developing as an athletic director, as a high school athletic director, not only do I have to develop the program in its entirety, I have to develop my coaches, I have to develop my athletes, and I have to develop myself. So it's a constant, continual learning program. We're every day, we're seeing, okay, how can we improve upon what we did yesterday? So it's ongoing, and it's multi-leveled.
So then
that's the simple answer.
Yeah, no, I love it. You did a great job answering it. And I especially like how you've even broken it down for us. I mean, saying that there's the different aspects to it, right? The program, the coaches, the athletes, and then yourself, which is probably the most important one of all of those. If you can't take care of yourself, if you can't develop yourself, then you're probably not going to be able to help the others. So let's start with that one. Let's talk about you a little bit, how you go about your development, some of the resources that you use. Can you give us some insight into all of that?
So, for me, it's important to be to learn and to never stop learning, to be that lifelong learner. So, looking out for what works for me, whether it's podcasts, whether it's books, professional development opportunities via Zoom, or going to actual conferences or workshops. Or if that's not available, then creating this piece of professional development that I may need, or my coaches may need. So it's trying to find that, sometimes you think you found something that works and you're learning, and then you realize, okay, that has run dry. Now let's pivot and let's try this out. So it's being willing to constantly learn and seeking out learning opportunities.
Sure. Yeah. I love that. Seeking it out. That's a big reminder, I think, for all of us, that it's not just when you're an adult, it doesn't just come to you. You have to go find it when it comes to learning, development, any of that good stuff that can better your life. Now, I'm curious from your perspective. So, a lot of times we talk about student athlete development, and I know how important it is for them to get the development in a number of different ways. But I also believe, quite frankly, that if the coaches aren't being given the same opportunity, then it probably doesn't have the same type of impact that it can. So from your perspective as an athletic director, how do you go about that alignment, like making sure that the opportunities that you're giving your student athletes who are super hungry for them are still given to your coaches, who some of them may be as hungry, others, let's just face it, may not be as hungry. And so how do you go about that alignment to get everybody on the same page when it comes to all of that?
So for me, the biggest challenge, and I will say that probably many of my colleagues would say the same, is that many of my coaches don't work in this building. So I have a staff of 40 people, and 39 of them have a job outside of this building, a full-time job outside of this building. So I have to find opportunities for them to learn at their own place, at their own space, on their own time. So gone, for me anyway, are the days of everyone gathering every Monday morning at 7 a.m. and having a huddle talk. That just doesn't happen, because they're off, doing their own things with their own full-time jobs, which I get and I respect. So I will say, especially in this era of COVID and Zoom, we've learned to adapt and we've learned to pivot. And so that is helping that mindset when I offer opportunities for my coaches. And I think the other thing too is giving them permission to say, here's what I'm offering you, do it when you can. Not saying, be here, do this, do that, do it by now. I'm just saying, here's an opportunity, and do it at your own pace, at your own time. I think that opens up a little, more freedom. The freedom allows for more growth, because they're more open to hear what you have to say. Sure. So that's the biggest challenge. I can provide professional development, but it looks different these days than it did 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Now, do you think the COVID or not, do you think that you will continue to evolve that way, where you're going to continue to work in that style, I guess?
I do. That human connection will always be important, but that just means that when they're on campus, I have to be more intentional about my interactions with them when I see them on campus.
Sure.
But I will continue to provide this professional development that they can do on their own. And when we have the opportunity to gather and we can have everybody in one place, yeah, we'll do that. But that might be a once a year type thing, as opposed to a more regularly set option of learning.
So was it, for some reason, it doesn't seem like, I know COVID forced our hands on a lot of things, but it doesn't seem like you were really resistant to the idea that a more virtual type of relationship could work. And it's just, you see sometimes still to this day, you see some resistance. You see people so eager to get back to the office, not because so much they miss the social interaction, but because that's the only way they know how to do things, or that's the only way they found success in their business model and everything. But it seems like, for whatever reason, you don't resist that. I mean, how do you go about the people that, maybe they are a little resistant of it still, and maybe they don't want to learn the technology. They don't want to do the things that we have to do in order to be successful in that type of world.
I have to be patient and I have to, take that extra time and then those extra steps to show them why this is important, how it will help them. And if I have to sit down and walk them through the technology, I need to do that.
Sure.
And sometimes, the beauty of it is if I have a coach who's struggling with the technology, I can say, have one of your athletes walk you through this. They'll show you how to do it. And that's then the student becomes a teacher and vice versa. And that's a good learning moment as well.
Yeah, I love that. And you've segued us nicely into, so essentially we're just talking about relationships and how to build relationships. And it was a topic that when I was thinking about our conversation, that I was interested to get your perspective on, because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different stakeholders that you deal with, and you've talked about some of them that we probably haven't mentioned yet: parents, maybe principals at schools and things like that. When it comes to building relationships, what are some of the vital points of emphasis that you have to say, in order for this relationship to work, here's what we need to do? We need to be on the same page as this. We can't really flex too much on that. What are some of those really important aspects to your relationship building process with all of those key stakeholders?
So 2 things I would say. Number 1, it would be good communication. Okay. So that means being a good speaker and being a good listener. Okay. So it can't be one-sided. Good communication means asking questions to make sure that you are understanding and that you are hearing what they're saying and vice versa. The second thing is, do your definitions align? Okay. So I may use words, I may use ideas, but I need to make sure that the people that I'm talking to have that same definition. Okay. So whether it's talking about, what a good program looks like, are we defining a good program the same way? Because if we're not, then that's when the problem comes in.
Sure.
So we have to make sure that we're defining, what is success? Well, we need to make sure that we're defining success the same way, because if my boss says success is only winning games, and I say, well, success is more than winning games, we've got to come to an understanding. Otherwise, there's, going to be some serious miscommunication and some serious problems. So the good communication, it's a multi-levered thing. It's good communication, and it's making sure that we understand the words we are using, that you define it the same way as I do. And maybe I don't have to agree with how you define it, but at least I know, okay, that's where his thoughts coming from. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. So funny that you talk about that. So one of the exercises we do through the Leadership Academy is culture pyramid building. And part of it is identifying words that are a part of your culture. It's just like an expansion on core values, and it just looks nice with the culture and the pyramid and everything. And so we talk about so often how, like, the word success, for example, can mean one thing to you and a totally different thing to me. And that's okay at the start of the exercise, but by the end of the exercise, there needs to be more of a mutual understanding about what success is in order for the culture to be fully fledged. At least that's my belief, and it seems like that's your belief too. And I'd love to segue us now to talk a little bit more about your culture and your program and the definitions that you've put out. You don't necessarily need to give us all the words that you've defined, but when somebody asks you, what's your program all about and what do you stand for? What are some of the things that stand out for you? What are some of the things that you would tell people?
So to start off by saying, first off, that culture is a way of life. It's how we do things. And so what I then emphasize, how I do things here is, I'll start by saying, of course I want to win. Okay. But let's push that aside. Okay. But I don't want people to think that I don't want to win, but we're pushing that aside. I first off want to build young people of character. I want people to be, just highly regarded when it comes to their character. I think that winning becomes a byproduct. So when we talk about being a person of character, we're striving for excellence in everything that we do. So we're striving for excellence as far as, mental growth, physical growth, skill growth, game preparation, all those things. Okay. That's what striving for excellence. That's what that means to me. And so we're focusing on all of that, which allows for growth. It allows for mistakes. So that's excellence isn't perfection. It's growth. So that's what my culture looks like. It's a culture of, I put you before me, that I value assist over goals, sort of a thing. That, in our culture here, if you are the top goal scorer, but you are not a quality person, we will not raise you up. If you are a striving for excellence everyday person, but not the most gifted athlete, but you are working hard and you're a person of character and you're doing it for your teammates, that's who will raise up. That's who will lift up. That's who will say, look here, be like them. All those things, then I think winning then happens because you focus on those things.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. And I think Culture is a Way of Life is a great book title if you're looking to write one in the future. So,
oh, yes. Thank you.
Really awesome. Now, so what you just walked us through seems like a very selfless type of culture, right? And tend to agree on many of the things that you said. One area that I'm always interested in is, let's take like an individual. Basketball's, I guess, a really good sport for this. You have somebody who's a point guard. They're a really great distributor. They pass the ball sometimes they pass the ball in opportunities where you'd rather them take the shot. And they're just super selfish or selfless, excuse me, people. But there are always going to be situations where you do need to be a little selfish, and you need to be able to, I guess, determine when that moment is, and know that being selfish isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? In that context, is that ever something that you come across where you say to someone like, "Wow, they are super selfless, and like they fit the culture, they are everything that we live and breathe, but I need them to hit that big shot in that one moment, and they're not willing to take that shot. How do I get them from where they are and still be that same person, except in that moment, flip that switch?" Have you ever come across that before?
Oh, sure. And those are what I call my teachable moments. That's when I can pull that young lady aside and say, and especially in today's world, when I can show game film,
Yeah.
and say, this here, right here, that's when I needed you to shoot the ball, and so they can see it and go, okay, yes, now I get it. Or, if it's, doing a service project at school and no one steps up, it's me taking a kid aside and putting my arm around her and saying, I need you to lead this, and following up both of those conversations with, I believe in you. I think you can do this. No. I know you can do this. I want you to do this. I need you to do this. Those are huge. I mean, just think about that. If I'm a young person and an adult who I trust and look up to says those things about me, like, look out world, here I come,
Right.
and so we have to realize that our words are powerful.
Yeah.
So we have to seek out those teachable moments. And then when they happen, we have to use our powerful words.
Yeah, I love it. I live by a quote that says, always believe deep down that you're destined to do great things. And I just know that has helped me as an individual. But to your point, I mean, especially when you're an adult, just I think having the self-awareness to realize how powerful your words are, and understanding that your delivery is probably more important than anything else. And I cringe sometimes in professional settings when adults to adults don't deliver things in the correct way, or the way that I guess I maybe would deliver it. But it's even more magnified when you're talking to, even if it's a high school senior, someone who's 18, they're still super impressionable at that age, still growing, still developing their brains and their minds. And I just think that's another excellent reminder of just the influence that we have as adults, as coaches, as athletic directors.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to help you get fit. Christine here from Sweat with Sods. Being at home has a lot of people in a rut with their workouts, but you don't have to be. My HIIT at home workouts require no equipment and can be done in 30 minutes or less. And if HIIT isn't for you, I also design custom programs that can be done virtually, in person, or a combination of both. I put my years of experience teaching classes and personal training into all of my programs. I've worked with lots of people and helped them achieve very different goals. So what are you waiting for? Head to sweatwithsods.com today. And don't forget that as a listener to this podcast, you can get a discount with code DYNAMIC at checkout. Can't wait to hear from you. And now, back to the show.
So I'd love to bring us into the conversation now where one of your, I mentioned the word influence, and one of your big initiatives in life, and even as a business professional, is the global community of women in high school sports. You are the founder of this organization, a great organization, and one of the initiatives is to advance women into positions of leadership, something that for our Leadership Academy aligns very, very well. And I say all the time, and I'm really hopeful that there's more Julie Ertz in the world in the future, and people like that. So I'd love to learn a little bit more, tell the listening audience, I know obviously, but tell the listening audience a little bit more about the organization. And then let's start with, why advancing women into positions of influence is so important at the core of what you do.
Sure. So I'm a high school athletic director. I'm a female. Let's start with that. And so that makes me a minority. And as being a female, really, in general, I'm a minority in this male-dominated business. But specifically, when we're talking about sports, it's a male-dominated industry. And so I've been an athletic director for 25 years. And within the last couple of years, I just was feeling my frustration levels had peaked and I just couldn't do it anymore. My voice was being shut down. I wasn't invited into the rooms. I wasn't a part of the meetings. I joke that my invisible powers were constantly kicking in because the men in the room never noticed me, because I oftentimes was the only woman in the room. So I decided to find power in being the only woman in the room. And I went to a couple of the national organizations that sponsor high school sports, and I asked them for a space in their organization for female athletic directors. They said no. They said no because I was asking men, and they didn't see a need for it. So that's fair. That's fine. But anybody who knows me knows that I'll say, okay, well, then I'm just going to create my own space. And that's what I did. And I founded the global community of women in high school sports. So, it's grown so much over the past year. It's a huge passion of mine. We need to create more opportunities for women in sports, whether it's, creating more positions for female athletic directors, female coaches, and more opportunities for female athletes. That has to happen. So my own mission, along with that of the global community, is creating space for women in the male dominated sports industry, and finding power. So oftentimes we are going to be the only woman in the room. And so how do we find power in that? And knowing that sometimes when I'm sitting there, my voice is speaking for everybody who can't be there. And so, I love it. It's hard, it's frustrating, but I'll tell you, as much as it is frustrating and sad that we have to work so hard, the energy and the joy that I'm getting from all these women who are reaching out and saying, this is so great, we need this, thanks for doing this, that's huge. I know that it's my responsibility. It is my responsibility as a female athletic director to make the path, the journey to the person who's going to sit in my chair after me way easier than it was for me.
Yeah, I love it. It's like not to attribute a quote to a guy, but Abraham Lincoln used to talk about how each generation that comes in like Americans should leave the country in a better place than it was when they came into this world. And just something that I often think about in what you just said there as well. And I've been a part of the organization in a couple of different ways. You've been gracious enough to give me opportunities to speak. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I had was the connection that I felt, like the level of enthusiasm and the level of engagement, maybe is the better word, between everyone that was there for that particular day. Obviously that's not everyone, but I imagine if that one particular call, for example, was as engaging as it was, that the community as a whole is very well connected and very well engaged. And I would love to know, how do you, besides sharing the common frustration, I'm sure, of having to deal with people like me in sports, but how do you go about creating a community that is so engaging and that wants to also help you initiate all that change? Because a lot of times people, myself included, I've come to this roadblock before, where you create something and you think just because it's a powerful message that it's just going to do the work for you, and you're going to have all these loyal followers and listeners and everything. It's like, no, it takes a little bit more than that. So I'd love I'd love to know how you actually get that engagement from your community to participate and to help you continue the initiative.
I think it starts with me being authentic, me being my true self, which means that, some days I'm excited and some days I'm sad and some days I'm mad and some days I'm just here, and we as females in the sports world, we're bonded together because of that, simply. Okay. And so I think that you can either allow life to keep happening as is, or you can say, nope, it's time for me to be seen and be heard. And I think that that's where we are with our group of women and men. Okay. So this is an important piece of the puzzle. There's men that are a part of our organization, and rightfully so. We're an inclusive organization. We need our male allies. We need men to understand what it's like for us to sit in that room as the only woman. We need men to help our voices get heard. And so I think that in this, world that we are living in now, post the Me Too movement, sort of, let's say,
Sure.
I think that there are a lot of women and young women out there who are ready for change and who are yearning for change and who just are tired of being invisible. And so I think that the global community fits that need. And it's a safe space, it's a safe space. And I think that's what's also important.
Yeah, sure. How this is something I think about often, and I'm wondering if you have any insight on it. So take for example, I don't want to give away who I'm talking about here, so I'll try and disguise it all. But a female sport coached by males, and seems to be that it at every level it's males, and I am sure that there are capable women, whether they're parents of the children or teachers in the community, whatever it is. How do we has whether you're male or not, I guess, but I think about this because I know this group of people, and they're good people, but it's like at some point you'd love to see an assistant get hired who's a female, for example. Like, how do you have that conversation with somebody and not alienate them to the point where you're doing more damage than you're doing good? Does that make sense, what I'm trying to get at?
Yes, it does. And here's what I would say is, it starts really simple. And here's what it is. We have to redefine, reimagine, and redefine, reimagine, and create the narrative that's different for what a coach looks like. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and whenever we say the word coach, probably a male pops up in most cases. So how do we, on a whole level, redefine and reimagine what it looks like to be a coach? I think when you can change that, when you can redefine and reimagine what coach looks like, what they're defined like, then I think it opens doors for anyone, no matter what they look like, no matter what sex they are, no matter what color they are, no matter, so it's that challenge of redefining and reimagining. The same goes for me as a high school athletics director. I don't fit the narrative of what a high school athletic director looks like because I'm a female. So how do we change the narrative? That's what we have to do, is change the narrative, and that will open doors for everyone.
Yeah, it's a really, really great point. And I'm hopeful that I have the as well as the moral compass, but the influence, I guess, to be able to have a conversation like that and be impactful in the way that we hope it's going to be. Because it's just, I think about it all the time, and again, I don't want to put these different definitions on that necessarily don't have to be there, because it's a predominantly female sport, that it needs to be a female coach. But at the same time, there isn't any female representation. And it's really, this is the challenge that I had before I started having contractors on, was there's just certain things I will never understand from a male perspective to a female perspective. So I feel like to get the full value, the full production out of a person, like to truly help them be their full self, you can't do that if there's like a fundamental genetic difference between someone. And so it's just something that I constantly am thinking about. How do we get more people in the room who can represent the people? And I guess that's where we're talking just diversity in general with all of this.
Right. And the other piece of that puzzle is by people like you, i.e. males, inviting people like me, females, into the room. Mm-hmm. So that invitation is huge. That's we need you to open the door for us. sometimes it's too often slammed in our face. We need men to open the door for me, and I'll take it from there. But we sometimes need that door open, or we need that invitation. And again, I mentioned it earlier, the power word, there's power in words. So there's power in your invitation. There's power in you saying to a young woman, have you ever considered being a coach? Have you ever considered you should go for that position? You should do that. There's power in your words.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very good reminder. Now, you do quite a number of different things with the global community, and I'd love for you to, again, tell us a little bit more about what are some of the features of becoming a part of the organization. What are the type of people that you can get connected with, and just the overall value of being in the organization outside of obviously supporting a really great initiative.
Sure. So we're open to everyone, but those particularly being, high school athletic directors, high school coaches, and those aspiring to be high school athletic directors or high school coaches. We offer mentoring programs, a book club. We offer networking opportunities. We offer job postings. We offer learning opportunities, professional development. We do a monthly office call, which we were grateful for you to be a part of. We just offer many, many opportunities for growth, for personal and professional growth as someone who wants to be or is involved in high school athletics. And I'm super proud of what we're doing. It's getting bigger every day. We have a website, check it out, follow us on social media. But yeah, it's fun to be a part of this group, and I'm learning a ton, and the passion and the energy and the knowledge and the wisdom that these women have, like, it's amazing. I love it. I realize I'm not alone anymore. That's been fun.
Yeah, it's got to be an amazing feeling, just
Yes.
having, and not that you need the support for reaffirmation, I guess, but just knowing that you're not all alone, because sometimes it does feel like that in certain situations. Got to be just an amazing feeling, and it is such an awesome community. And I'm going to put the website, all the social handles in the show notes for this episode, so we'll make sure we make that easy access for people. So Jen, just in terms then of, global community included, but your athletic director career in the future, I mean, what are some of the things here in the near future that you're hoping to accomplish? Just whatever it is, I'm not going to put any labels on it, but what are some of those things that you're looking to accomplish in the near future?
So for me personally, and then professionally, as far as global community goes, it's about creating more space and more opportunities for females. And then on the flip side of that, it's about having conversation with my male colleagues to have them understand and to create more awareness of what it's like, that gender difference of what it's like. So it's very simple. It sounds simple. It's stated simply, but it's far more complex than that. But I love the challenge. I'm up for it. I look forward to it. It gives me energy. And it's all good.
Now, I know you had mentioned that you have some, whether it's mentorship or training resources within the global community for people who either want to become coaches at the high school level or who want to become athletic directors. Are there just a few, maybe general resources that you can shout out for folks that they could, check out on their own time, as well as your organization?
I would say that if you want to become involved in high school athletics, start volunteering. Become a volunteer coach, become a volunteer assistant coach. That's the learning happens on the job, so I could tell you, go get this degree, go take these classes. Yeah, those are all good, but the learning is going to happen while in the experience. So especially for the young people out there, definitely start coaching and volunteer. That's what's going to get you in the door.
Yeah, pretty again, pretty simple. Not a huge secret, but
no, because you'll find that, I joke around and I'll say, I'll ask people, guess what my degree's in? And no, of course they want to say sports management or something, no, I'm a religious studies major. Okay. So, and my peers will tell you they have similar things. It's not, we what we went to school for, did not prepare us for what we do on our job every day. It's the learning experience. So get involved in an athletic program at some level somehow, and start asking questions and start saying, hey, talk to that's how I got this job. I reached out to the athletic director and said, hey, if you ever need any help, let me know. Boom. Within a few months, I was the athletic director.
Yeah.
Life happened, so.
Yeah, it's another great reminder. Write the letter, make the phone call, just be proactive, and good things will happen. Whether it's athletic director, coach, whatever industry you're in, I think it's another really great reminder. And Jen, I just want to say again before we wrap everything up here today, just how impressed I am with the organization. And I came away from the opportunity that you gave me just so energized, like how I normally come off of these calls after talking to people like yourself. And that doesn't always happen. And that was why, I asked you that question about the engagement and how you were able to build that with your community. And so I do think it's a really special one. Highly encourage any listeners to please check it out. The link's right in the show notes. Just if you're not driving, click over and check it out. But any last words of wisdom that you want to leave us with before we let you go here today?
I appreciate the opportunity to sit at your table, to have this great conversation with you about, what it's like to be a female athletic director, a female in the athletic world, and just hopefully our listeners have a few tidbits on how they can be more proactive and how they can see the woman in the room.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jen. Again, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.